Where there's thunder, there's lightning. John Nada. Let me give a bit of a rundown on what's been going on in John Nada's world here as of late. I recently got back from vacation about 2 weeks ago, spent a little time at the beach. Also spent a little time in the city of New Orleans and got to see the World War II National Museum there. And if you haven't gotten a chance to go see that, I highly recommend that you do so. It's quite interesting and doesn't do quite the justice to the scale of that conflict, but it comes as close as any museum, I guess, is ever going to come to telling that story. I also picked up a new compound bow from Bear to go along with the Bear recurve that I got a couple months back. And I've posted a picture of the recurve in one of the earlier videos, but I will try to get a picture of the compound bow for the next one. I have everything I need to do a hunt this fall. Me and a buddy have been talking about doing a turkey hunt. So I've, of course, got all the equipment for that. And I've got the recurve and the compound bow, which gives me options there as well. I also recently got a new set of bagpipes. And I actually I didn't pay that much for them. They were actually considerably in an affordable price range for the brand. And the McCollum bagpipes. The previous bagpipes I had bought were no name, God knows where they came from. And they just didn't have a good sound, and they were just really hard to, I was putting in a lot of work on a set of bagpipes that in the end I just decided probably were not playable due to the craftsmanship not being at the level it needed to be at. But this new set has a great sound to it. And of course, I'm in the process of learning it. I've got my practice channel and everything else, but it is a difficult instrument to get any sort of mastery of. But it gives me something to do, and it's a hobby for me, and I enjoy it. Another thing, I'd like to put some feelers out there to some of you guys out there in the Nada Nation, because I'm wondering if I have any listeners from Paraguay. And the reason that I ask is because I've been doing some research and looking into Paraguayan citizenship, and I was wondering if any of you guys out there are from Paraguay, and if any of you guys have any insights into that process, or not just the process itself, but insight into, of course, what it's like to live in Paraguay, and perhaps at some point, maybe having some people in Paraguay to visit while I'm there, and then, that they can show me the area. So I would be interested in knowing if we've got any listeners there. Today's topic is not going to be a comprehensive or concise, omnibus of information when it comes to the red flags associated with a lot of women. These are just some generalities and some insights and things that I've drawn from my own experiences and interactions with women over the years, to try to give some of you guys that are still out there Mgtow, you're Mgtow, but you're still doing the whole dating thing. One of the things that, these are all going to be pretty common sense, straightforward kind of warnings, but in my time, and I think I mentioned it on the program before, but I don't think that I ever dated a single girl that was stable and actually, was just a normal person. They all had some kind of proclivity. They all had some kind of issue they were dealing with, some kind of baggage from their past. The only girl that I can think of that I think had any kind of, came close to any sort of normalcy was a girl that I dated who was from a very small Midwest town. I mean, they've still got Amish running around the roads there. Her father was a pastor, and she had about 4 other sisters. And so, really, honestly, if I'm being fair, she was probably the closest thing to normal, if not normal, in terms of girls that I've dated. She didn't have any major issues. But a lot of that, I think, is due to the upbringing. It was kind of not a strict religious upbringing, but but a conservative kind of religious upbringing. You know, her parents had expectations for her, especially her father. And she grew up ensconced in a small town. So I'm not surprised that out of everybody that I've been with, that was the one that seemed the most normal. A lot of the issues that have arisen when I've dated people are when you start to talk about, you know, women that are coming from divorced homes, or women that don't get along with their parents, particularly their father. These women typically tend to have some sort of damage and diminished ability to connect with the people that they date. I mean, they already have grown up in an environment where there's not a whole lot of working through things through thick and thin. There's not a whole lot of permanency in the home when they're growing up, so they don't see a whole lot of permanency in their relationships. Whether they sabotage the relationships themselves on purpose or whether they subconsciously sabotage them through their inability to connect and their inability to be pleasant to be around. You've also got the women who jump through hoops from one relationship to the next. They jump hither, tither, here and there. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, Jack jump over the candlestick. You know, they're not single for any period of time, for any notable period of time. They may be single a week. They may be single 2 weeks, maybe a month at the longest. But these women, they go from relationship to relationship. And I dated a girl that was exactly like this. And, you know, I told her one time, I think it was after we had broken up, we had talked on and on, off and on, here and there. And, you know, I just mentioned, you know, that she's one of these people. She constantly has to be in a relationship. She constantly has to have that validation from somebody. And she got offended at this notion. But the reason that she got offended by it, the reason that it hurt her feelings was because it was the absolute truth. She knew that I was telling the truth about the reality of the fact that she wasn't happy with herself. She wasn't happy with what was going on in her life. She didn't feel enough on her own because she didn't know who she was. And so the reason she kept getting into these relationships was because she needed that validation. She needed that feeling of self-worth that came from somebody else wanting her and wanting to be with her and telling her, you know, encouraging her and telling her she was wonderful and all these things. Not surprisingly, she didn't have a great relationship with her father. At least not at that particular point in time. You've also got these women who have no worldview. They have no opinion on politics. They have no opinion on history. They're not interested in history or politics. They're not interested in anything that has nothing to do with makeup or celebrity gossip. I can't tell you. I don't think I've ever dated a girl, again, barring maybe the preacher's daughter, who was into anything other than clothing, makeup, and celebrity gossip, and liked, you know, like just not really adventurous in their musical tastes, you know, whatever poppy thing came on the radio. The preacher's daughter was somewhat interested in some of the things I was interested in. We kind of shared a shared interest in the supernatural, a shared interest in some of the crime related stuff. You know, oddly enough, she was really into serial killers, which maybe that should have been a red flag. Not into them in the sense that she was, you know, particularly enamored with any particular one, but she enjoyed the true crime kind of stuff. And particularly that of those kind of cold case file stuff. But that was really the only one. I never dated a girl that was particularly interested in World War II history or Civil War or ancient history. And these are all things that I'm, of course, interested in. And I never really met anybody that was interested in any of that stuff. And most of them, like I said, with the exception of one or two, were not interested in outdoor activities like fishing or or bow hunting or any kind of like camping or not really survival, but just, long-term camping, backpacking, that kind of thing. I mean, there's plenty of women that say they're interested in that stuff, but when the reality sets in of doing 20 miles a day with a big pack, and you don't have any phone service, and you're eating food that you're making off the portable camp stove, and drinking water out of the river there that's purified with iodine and whatnot. I don't see very many women being all that interested in the reality of what camping and really doing something like the Appalachian Trail really is like. I think they like the idea of it. They like the idea that they could post a selfie, on top of Klingman's Dome or something, but they don't really like the actual act of doing it. And a lot of these women without worldviews are also very materialistic. They expect you to drop all this money on them. They expect you to do all these things for them. They expect you to have this nice car. Doesn't matter that your car has been paid off for 5 years and you don't have a payment. Doesn't matter that you're happy with the car. Doesn't matter that the car has never been in the shop. It's not a flashy car. And abusive women, I've seen it out in public. Others have seen it out in public. The woman that kind of slaps and hits at her boyfriend, or slaps and hits at her husband. Not in a real attempt to injure the guy. Not in a real attempt, it's just a knee-jerk reaction maybe. He says something she doesn't like. She kind of just slaps at him, In no way did it probably cause him any pain or injury, but it makes me wonder what goes on behind closed doors. You've got women with extreme sexual proclivities, women with a long sexual history. These are usually damaged women. These are usually women that cannot form a relationship with a guy. These are usually women that are going to cheat on a guy, particularly if the guy treats them better than the last guy they've been with. The better that you treat these kind of women, the more likely they are to cheat on you. And then you've got the feminist women, women that are openly feminist, women that are openly against Donald Trump, not because they don't like Donald Trump's policies, not because they don't, because Donald Trump has said anything that's really worth getting twisted up about, but because it's the popular thing, like it was when George W. Bush was president. It's the popular thing to not like Donald Trump. And again, this program is not a political program. And I'm not, espousing support one way or the other. I'm simply saying you've got a lot of these women out here going to these protests, doing these quote unquote so-called women's marches, and they don't know the first thing about anything to do with Trump's policies, nor do they know the first thing to do with Hillary's policies or anybody else's policies. They just know that some celebrity got up there and told them that he was bad. And then you've got the potential of living with a woman and getting kicked out of your own house, losing property while you're gone because they'll throw your stuff out on the yard or throw it in the trash, and a potential arrest, all because you lived with a woman. And women know the power of a DV assertion. They don't have to have any proof or any evidence to call the cops to get you thrown out of your own house, for you to lose your property, and for you to be potentially arrested. There's the women with anxiety. Anxiety over what? Who knows? The women who talk more about anxiety and PTSD than truly battle-hardened combat veterans do. There's the women with the abusive ex in the past, which we all know how ubiquitous that is. And we also know what a crock of BS that is 9 times out of 10. The abusive ex 9 times out of 10 ends up being the guy that told her no. And then you've got the women with all kinds of kids and a string of bad relationships with the bad boy thug types in their past. When you rule all that out, when you check all that off, how many women are out there that are really dateable material? I've not seen that many personally, and I doubt you have either. This has been the Days of Thunder. Remember, go your own way or don't. The choice is yours.